so many times in the Torah, the three forefathers are mentioned Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, right? Were our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Mentioned a lot. It's mentioned in the prayer, in the Amidah, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov. Now here again, it's following the usual pattern. They're mentioned again, and this is just to bring this into context. So Bechukotai is telling us the consequences of obeying or disobeying the mitzvot, the divine instructions of the Torah. And at the very end, it says, "Well, you obviously you obey, you'll be rewarded. You disobey, you'll be punished." But at the end, it says it's all going to be good at the end because even after you're punished, God will forgive you, and you'll be brought back to the promised land, and teshuvah, right, rectification is possible. Actually, it's necessary. It is part of the process, and actually the destination of the process. That is the expected end result is that Daddy in heaven is going to be compassionate and bring the lost children, as it's often mentioned in text, back home. But there is an interesting difference in this mention of the forefathers, and here it is. And I will remember my covenant with Jacob. I will remember my covenant with Isaac, and I will remember my covenant with Abraham, and I will remember the land, says God. How is this different? Usually we read Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and here it goes in reverse order. How come? Well, as you know, when something is strange and unusual, there's a deeper teaching hidden in there for us. So with the help of the Slonimer, again, this morning we go back to Netivot Shalom. By the way, folks, for those of you who come on regularly, let me recommend that you get yourself a copy of Netivot Shalom. It's actually a few volumes. This is the volumes, the commentary on the Chumash, on the Parsha. So you can open the book together with me as we're reviewing. If you do have a copy, this is Netivot Shalom Va'ikra, Leviticus, and we are on page Kuf Lamed Zayin, 137, with commentary on this verse. Let's jump right in. במדרש מסמיך לפסוק וזכרתי את בריתי יעקב ואף את בריתי יצחק ואף את בריתי אברהם אזכור והארץ אזכור. In the Midrash, in Vaikra Rabbah, it is the Midrash takes that verse and compares it or links it together with a verse in the Talmud, et machloket Beit Shammai Beit Hillel, with a debate between the house of Hillel and the house of Shammai. Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai were like the two competing large movements at the time. This is the first century before the Common Era. And they were distinctly different. Typically, Beit Hillel was considered more lenient and Beit Shammai more strict. And one can compare that to, orthodoxy in our time versus reform. I actually like to compare it to renewal. You say orthodoxy versus renewal. Reform is more commonly known. But you get the idea that on one hand you have a school of thought that is strict, and on the other hand you have the school of thought that's lenient, both committed to Torah, and there you have it. So what is the debate? So the Midrash is going to link this pasuk my covenant with Jacob, my covenant with Isaac, my covenant with Abraham, to this debate between Abraham, Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai. Beit Shammai אומרים, השמיים נבראו תחילה ואחר כך הארץ. The house of Shammai say, when the world was created, the heavens were created first and then the earth. ובית הלל אומרים, הארץ נבראת תחילה ואחר כך שמיים. And the house of Hillel say, no, the earth was created first and then the heaven. Okay, the Torah wasn't clear. The Torah says that God created the heavens and the earth, but what was created first? Amar Rashbi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who is 2nd century, so this is about 200 later after Beit Hillel and Beit Shammai. And he is one of the Tanaim, one of the students of the great Rabbi Akiva. Also the Zohar, the sort of the Bible of Kabbalah, is attributed to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Scholars claim otherwise, but nevertheless, that's a traditional attribution is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, a great Tana, a great teacher, rabbi of his time, and known as a mystic, as just a light, a sage of that time. And Rashbi in the Talmud is quoted as saying, "Tameani ech nichliku avot haolam al briat shamayim va'aretz." How could the two great teachers, Hillel and Shammai, have a debate about what came first, the heaven or the earth? Shani omer shamayim va'aretz lo nivreu ela ke'al pas v'kisui. I say, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that the heaven and the earth were actually created as a pot and a cover, Hainu Yachdav, together. At the same time. What's the debate? You can't have a pot without a cover. You can't have a cover without a pot. Right? Says Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Now, the question is, what does that have to do with the reversal of the order of the forefathers? And I'll give you a little bit a hint of the end right here at the beginning of our discussion. And that is that the forefathers are a symbol for different spiritual attributes or different approaches to spiritual practice, to Jewish practice. And the question is, what comes first? Does Abraham come first, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Or does Jacob come first? Jacob, Isaac, and Abraham. And I gave it away. I hope I didn't spoil it. But let's jump right back into the text. The Slonimer has just really a beautiful teaching about this here. ויש לומר על דרך העבודה, דהנה נחלקו האחים הקדושים, הרב הקדוש רב אלימלך והרב הקדוש רב זושה, זיכרונו יאיר עלינו. So the Slonimer is bringing another more, not contemporary, almost contemporary, from this is from the 19th century of the Common Era. A debate between two great Hasidic rabbis, Rabbi Elimelech and his brother, Rabbi Zusha. And they were both students of the great Maggid of Mezrich, who was the successor of the Baal Shem Tov. Really, these were sages of the 18th and 19th century, followers of the Baal Shem Tov. They brought like a fresh injection of energy and deep wisdom and mystical understanding, integrating Kabbalah with ethics, with the social dynamics of their time in Poland and Russia and the Eastern Central Europe. And they have this debate. אם יהודי צריך להתחיל בעבודת השם יתברך מגדלות הבורא, וכמה שמשיג יותר את גדלות הבורא, הרי הוא בא להכרה בשפלות עצמו, whether a Jew, a person, a spiritual adept, a spiritual practitioner, should approach their spiritual life and their practice, which is prayer, study, etc., from the perspective of seeking to understand and focusing on the greatness, the vastness of the Creator. And through attaining an understanding of the grandeur of the universe, of the greatness of God, of the lofty, sort of deep, profound recognition of of the enormity of the spiritual context of life, a person comes to then recognize a true humble perspective about themselves, and it helps them find their right sort of place in the world and focus on the right things, and not get distracted by egoic or material or sort of mundane immediate concerns and desires. A person then comes to recognize their own humility, right? Or on the other hand, or a person has to start working on their own humility, really basically kind of working on what's called musar, working on self-improvement, on little things, on being a humble person, on kind of clearing out the delusions about oneself, and just working more on the psychological level, really, and on the relational level, and on the sort of the immediate things, having a good, proper character in life first. And from that acquired humility and self-improvement, then from that a person will naturally come to recognize the lofty and the grand, and the divine and God, and the sort of spiritual abstractions and philosophical heights of spiritual depth. ונכנסו לשאול את רבם המגיד הגדול, זיכרונו יאיר עלינו. So they debated this question, and they went to the Maggid of Medrash, of Mezrich, to their Rebbe, to their master, and they asked him, who's right? והשיב להם, שאלו ואלו דברי אלוהים חיים, and he said, both of your positions are the words of the living God. They're equally correct. אך כמאמר העולם, מן הארץ אין נופלים, לכך עדיף להתחיל משפלות עצמו. But, as we all know, from the ground level, one cannot fall, right? One cannot fail starting from the ground level. Therefore, start from the ground. Start with your own humility and self-improvement. Says the Rebbe. But his point is, you're both right. There is no debate. Now, do you see the parallel between this dynamic and what Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is saying about the debate between Hillel and Shammai? How come they're both, one says heaven was created first, and the other is saying earth was created first, and I say they're both right. They were created together. No debate there. So you see the parallel. The heavens were created first, and that's a metaphor of saying a person should revere heaven first, and from that you'll come to the ground level of self-correction. And Hillel says the earth was created first. That means that a person should start from the ground level with self-improvement, and then over time you'll get to the higher spiritual levels. And Rashbi said, I wonder about these two greats who had a debate about that. שאני אומר שמיים וארץ נבראו יחדיו, I say they're both heaven and earth were created together. Meaning, היינו שצריך לבית הבחינות יחדיו, ולא תיתכן האחת בלא חברתה. כי אי אפשר להכיר בשפלות עצמו כי אם על ידי הכרה בגדלות הבורא. A person cannot recognize and correct themselves without a recognition of the grandeur and the spiritual context of life, of the greatness of God. וכן לא תיתכן ההכרה בגדלות הבורא, כי אם על ידי ההכרה בשפלות עצמו. And a person can never really recognize the greatness of God and see a spiritual perspective before they humble themselves. He or she humbles him or herself. וצריך שיהיו שניהם כאחד, כאלפס וכיסוי. Both have to come together like a pot and a cover. שיחדיו מהווים שלמות. Together they make one whole. וכאשר חסר אחד מהם, חסר בשלמות. And when one is missing, the whole is disrupted. So there's a really, really beautiful teaching about how to approach so both the dualism and the unity that has to kind of coexist and dance with one another as we grow spiritually. Right? So I just love the way the Sotomer here is laying it out, and besides, think about the question. It's just so eternal. It's so old. Our ancestors way back, dealt with the same, with the same dilemma. And often we have this dilemma, even in our relationships, with our partner. You want to have a project together, especially when it's a spiritual project or an intimate project or a project of significance. And one will say, let's focus on the ground level. Forget all the lofty, high stuff. It's like, you're not ready for that yet. And the others say, but without the lofty and the high, there is no vision. We will just get stuck in the muck. We'll never go anywhere because we'll just be chasing our tails on the ground level, splashing in the mud. So, no debate. So let's take this back here with the Stonemer, take it back to the text, which I think is a beautiful unexpected teaching from an obscure line in the Parsha. ולזה מסמיך המדרש את מאמר הכתוב, וזכרתי את בריתי יעקב, ואף את בריתי יצחק, ואף את בריתי אברהם אזכור. And that is why the Midrash is linking the verse in our Torah, in our Parsha, mentioning Jacob first, and then the covenant with Jacob, and the covenant with Isaac, and the covenant with Abraham, to the debate between Hillel and Shammai. To say that all the ancestors are equal. What does he mean by that? היינו דאברהם הוא מידת החסד, מידת אהבה, ויצחק הוא מידת היראה, ויעקב הוא מידת תפארת, הכולל מזיגת בית המידות כאחד, אהבה ויראה. והשלמות היא רק על ידי כל המידות כאחד. So let's look. According to Kabbalah, Abraham is the archetype of loving kindness, of leniency, of not compassion, actually, loving kindness, of giving, of this heavenly flow, this high perspective. I mean, nobody can go wrong from the perspective of heaven. And Yitzchak, Isaac, is the archetype of fear, pachad Yitzchak, of discipline, of strictness, of exactitude, of practice, of um, of implementing Torah just by the letter in this world. And the midah, the attribute there is called ira. So Abraham is the archetype of love, and Isaac is the archetype of fear or awe. Vashlemut. Oh, and Jacob and Yaakov is the sephira, the Kabbalistic attribute of rachamim, or tiferet, but rachamim for our purposes, of compassion. And compassion is the synthesis of both love and fear. Compassion is right in between. So Jacob is really the bringing together, the merging of his grandfather's love and his father's discipline and strictness. And you can see here how the parallel to Hillel and Shammai, right? And Shimon Bar Yochai is the synthesizer. And the whole is really the combination of both in Jacob, says the Slonimer. And that is why the Torah here is mentioning them in the opposite order, from the youngest to the oldest, to show that they really are all equal. ששלמות עבודת השם היא רק כאשר יהודי מטהר כל המידות. That the complete spiritual life, the complete service, the divine service, is can only be when a person, when a Jew, purifies all of the different archetypes, all of the different sephirot. The one of love, the one of fear, and the one of compassion. And by bringing all of those together, then we have a wholeness. May we so be blessed to find the place where we get stuck in the dualism of opposites, the fork on the road, especially in our spiritual lives. Should I be on the ground level, or should I spend time in the heights? Should I be in strictness, or should I be in leniency? Is God all love, or is God all discipline? Am I doing the right thing because I'm inclined one way, and I'm beating myself up because how come I'm not on the other? So if you're a person who, is really spontaneous and a right-brainer, and, and you really just love inspiration and wisdom, and, kind of like to be in the heights of dancing with God, through prayer and song and heart-to-heart philosophical talks into the night, but you have no discipline, and you don't do you're not in the grind of daily prayer and daily meditation and working on yourself and taking on the challenge of doing mitzvot, and refraining, abstaining, and fasting, and you beat yourself up because I'm this spontaneous person, but I really don't do so well with discipline. But if you're the person who's really meticulous, and you're on the ground level, and you're doing all the work, and you're fulfilling the mitzvot, and you take on a spiritual practice, and you're really methodical, and you're really disciplined, and there's an element of concern and fear, and you want to do the right thing, and you wish you were spontaneous, and you wish you can fly high and have the experiences of your fellow adept on the other side, and you're beating yourself up because you're not flying with the angels. So here the Torah is telling us all are necessary. All are necessary. It's a synthesis. That's why, we're blessed to, and we grow. I believe that we grow in community. I carry one archetype, another carries another archetype, and together in a minyan, we move forward. What a beautiful teaching. I think I'd like to leave us with that. A great way to start this day. Please excel. Let us excel in our God-given side of the equation, and let us merge and have an easy time taking from here, taking from there, finding our synthesis, and eventually becoming a Jacob, Isaac, and Abraham, all in one within. Let us say Amen. I would love to hear your thoughts on this beautiful teaching by the Slonimer. Anything come up for you, as we were learning here this morning in our Cyber Yeshiva. Why don't you write a comment? Let's keep the conversation going. I'm Rabbi Ruben Modik with Makom Halev Community here in Nyack, New York, and with Hebrew Learning Circles, where we try to actually bring that synthesis as we grow spiritually with our Yiddishkeit, with our Yahadut, to both children and adults. If you are in New York, drop a note or drop by. For those of you around the country, around the world, let's continue the conversation virtually. Give us a like, subscribe to the channel, come back for more. We'll be here online in the Cyber Yeshiva almost every day. For now, shalom.